because H2K have also had Selfie come back in after Larson had stepped in for him previously, and of course you see Shook in the bottom lane. Now that is due to the fact that Sheriff has suffered a recent personal loss. Now our thoughts and prayers as this broadcast team, Riot Games, we are all with him at this time. But I wonder how this is going to change the way H2K played this game out.
Well, Shook has shown to be a multi-role talent. Debuting in the jungle, playing in the mid lane, challenging Fnatic, giving them quite a chaotic game, and now he's looking to show his talents down towards the bot. The big struggle that he may be faced with is that AD carries are becoming more prevalent in the current meta. And how will he fare? Will he look to play those AD carries? Will he look to play perhaps some of the mages that he did show in the middle lane? We will have to wait and see.
All right, well, it looks like the first lock-in is already there. There's the Trundle locked in for Kadriel, that early game dueling power. We took a look at some of the bans that had come out, a couple of jungle bans as well. Nocturne, Talia, no surprise with the Aatrox as well from Misfits Gaming. They take a very quick pickup of the Gragas and the Braum, already beefy frontliners.
Yeah, and I'm sad that they insta-locked them, because one of the things I was going to say is, in the past, Jezz used to be known for playing a lot of Braum. It was a big comfort pick for him, something that when he did play on Fnatic last year, it was often their go-to down towards the bottom lane, because it enables you to play a much more defensive style around your hyper carry AD, which Hansama kind of is.
We also saw the same thing as early as the EU Masters, or as recently as the EU Masters when Jezz went on Origin. And talk about setting up for hyper carry, he had Forgiven. But let's go back over to H2K, because they take a very quick lock in the mid. It's a Ryze.
Okay, so they're trying to pick some power picks very early on into the draft. You wouldn't imagine things like the Zoe to be higher in priority, but the Syndra going to come out. Now, she did receive a couple buffs on patch 8.15. The base damage to her Q at early levels has been increased, which makes her laning phase that much more potent. Against champions like the Ryze, that is very valuable because of how effective he can be at pushing and wave clearing, especially once he gets that tier. So Misfits, they don't want to concede that mid lane pressure. They will lock in an early mid. They have not the greatest early game jungler in the form of Gragas, and he may struggle against Trundle in terms of early pressure, but offers great utility in these team fights later on alongside the Braum. H2K drafting themselves a little bit more of a 1-3-1 so far with what they've got themselves.
All right, now we enter ban phase 2. It's worth looking back at some of the other bans we'd seen so far, with H2K focusing on supports early. Now they also ban out the Kennen, trying to give Smittyj a better matchup in top.
Now, I'd love to see an Ashe ban here from the side of Misfits, because I feel like that not only is Ashe something that's quite safe and defensive, but it also offers a bit of engage. And just denying that away from Shook, I think would hurt H2K's composition. You can already see with the Ezreal ban, they're really trying to limit his pool and draft, make sure that Hansama can have a pretty strong 2 versus 2 matchup.
Well, certainly the case. They continue to do it. The Lucian is banned away. Now it's back over to H2K to see what Shook picks up. Promisq as well. So bot lane's unfamiliar with each other across the board.
Okay, so they're going to take away the Lucian as well. Ashe is still available. That's kind of where my eye is going. Varus is another potential, but Misfits, they could look to lock the Varus in now or save their AD carry pick till much later on in the draft. Wait to see what Shook and Promisq go for. Misfits, part of me feels like that they could go for a Malphite here. Largely because it just kind of adds an extra bit of engage. I feel like the Malphite does well into champions like Gnar and Jace up in the top side of the map. And it's also something that Alphari has played in the past, and I think it would fit quite nicely with the kind of teamfight composition that they are making their way towards.
It looks like they end up opting into the Gangplank, so packing a little more powder into those kegs.
You are going to struggle in the laning phase.
I was about to say, Alphari might have a hard time without some help from Maxlore.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough laning phase, but it does give you a couple more options in the side lane. Remember that his ultimate is really good, not only once he hits level 6 and early game impact because of the amount of wave clear that it provides, but also if you have a champion trying to split push and you're trying to set up around Baron, use your ulti on the side main to very quickly clear that out.
Okay, so here's the buff Fizz.
Yep.
Talk to me, VODS.
Are they going for a kill lane bot?
Are they really going to do this?
It looks like they're going for a kill lane bot, ladies and gentlemen. Shook has locked in the Fizz. We don't know if the Fizz is being played mid. I actually think this Fizz is in the mid lane. Ryze is going to the bot.
Still a kill lane.
That's kind of what I expect. I would rather not have the Pyke here. Alistar much prefer. I think this offers nice engage, much more about what your team needs, and I think that Fizz has always been considered a really good pick into the Syndra, and with the buffs that she's recently had, this is definitely a big lane that you can look to play around if you're Selfie. Really excited to see this matchup. We can talk more about it once we get into game. Misfits now looking to round out their AD carry pick for Hansam.
All right, last couple of seconds ticking down. Hansam, of course, one of those players played almost exclusively AD carries except for the Vladimir we saw earlier. Didn't quite work out for them. So he ends up locking in the Kaisa. So we have a Kaisa Braum lane. Talk about a hyper carry. That is one that you can enable.
Yeah, the scaling on the side of Misfits is rather strong. You kind of look at the Gangplank, you look at the Kaisa, their team fighting, very, very good. Pick's potential is decent, thanks to the Gragas and the Syndra. But the problem is their lanes are pretty weak in the early game. Smittyj has strong advantage topside. Hansama is going to be pushed in pretty heavily by this Ryze and Alistar in the bot. And Sencux, you lose 1v1 to a Fizz. Early levels, you might get a bit of poke down, a bit of wave clear, but once that Fizz hits 6, oh god, that is a scary matchup for the Syndra. So I'm a little concerned for Misfits right now. It doesn't feel like they have a lot of winning lanes. The jungle matchup as well. Trundle into Gragas, very much in the favor of H2K. And this is how they took down Splice. They drafted a lot of winning lanes. They played in a way that was very much about trying to find those early game leads, force a lot of early game fights, and while Splice found those early game fights, it ended up being a couple of bad decisions and utilizing this early pressure that they were able to turn around into a big win against Splice.
H2K, a team that doesn't have a whole lot to lose in here, can play spoiler against Misfits Gaming. Of course, the latter already locked into the playoffs, but it's now become a battle for seeding. So can H2K upset the apple cart with some interesting choices and what could be a very deadly early composition up against Misfits Gaming? Misfits will have to hang on and ride this one out. They want to try and keep contesting for that top spot. Remember where these guys are. They're tied for first with Fnatic. They both qualified for playoffs already. But every win is going to count to get those seeds.
Crowd is hyped. We've got an energetic crowd today here live in Berlin. We've had some interesting chants. I wonder what the chaps have prepared for this Misfits versus H2K game.
That is a very good question. I can't wait to hear. And we're on to the Rift.
All right,
that was one.
As we mentioned, H2K did get their first win of the split last week.
Congratulations.
And we wanted to celebrate that. Congratulations to H2K. They did bring in Larson to sub in Selfie, who was unwell, and they played really well. They utilized their early lead. They found a lot of great team fights. Larson looked exceptional, and we just wanted to congratulate them for breaking that losing streak, finally making that change that they needed in order to find themselves a win. Kadra as well coming in as the replacement jungler and doing a fantastic job. So good job for H2K. It's definitely been a rough split for them. Things have been challenging with the amount being unable to adapt to the patch. You can see that their decision making and shot calling has not been on point, and often they've come close but haven't quite been able to secure themselves that win aside from last week. So let's see if they can cause another upset this week. They have drafted themselves some pretty strong lanes, and I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah. And remember, they're facing off against Misfits, who may have reason to doubt themselves right now. This team is on a 0-3 losing streak for the time being, and well, let's kick things off and just start by taking a look at even the difference in approach here in those mid lanes. Look at those summoner spells. Selfie, he's going all for the kills. That's the Ignite Fizz. Sencux has got Exhaust.
That's what you got to do on the Fizz. You got to go towards trying to get those kills. He's not like super early game focused. He does scale really well, but he just has so much lane strength because of the amount of mobility he has. Not only from his Q, but also from his E. And the reason why we're seeing him, especially in solo queue right now, is because he got a huge buff. Not only did he get a big buff to the damage on his W, but the scaling on his W went up as well, and so did the scaling on his ult. And the reason why that was so important was because in the past, if you landed an ultimate from point blank range, it would do very little damage. Now, because of the scaling increase, as long as you got 1 or 2 items, it packs a real punch, which means that that ultimate is always going to be a threat. And into Syndra, one of the reasons why he's so good is, again, because of that mobility. She's so skill shot reliant, he can dodge almost all of her abilities, including her ultimate with his E. So he can start an engage by throwing out the Shark, which is very difficult for her to dodge, and then he can follow it up by dodging her stun and all of the things that make her obnoxious as a champion. So that's why it's such a potent matchup. That's why it's so scary. And once it hits that 6 mark is really where we got to keep our attention on this mid lane.
Yeah. There's a little bit of time before that's going to happen as well, but so far it has been just that little game of chicken, making sure that Selfie dodging around, not using the Playful Trickster until that stun is up. But Kadra wants to get this started early, and Alphari has to flash the pillar.
A lot of damage was done to Smittyj. You can see how potent that Grasp of the Undying Gangplank can be in the early game. But yes, Flash now gone for the Gangplank. H2K, they want to look to play through that top side. We talked a little bit about the Fizz level 6. One of the other things that he's really good at, diving. Thanks to the ability to reset the tower aggro with your E. If Smittyj is able to generate a lot of pressure, and the fact that Alphari doesn't have Flash, I'd love to see Cage make a return gank later on into the game, up towards the top side of the map, to see if they can try and get a couple of kills onto the GP, try and shut down Alphari, and give Smittyj that winning side lane pressure.
Now remember though, Misfits, they are also still playing in a somewhat unfamiliar situation. This may be more relevant as the game goes on, but I just want to call back to the fact that they are using a substitute. This was this deliberate choice that they felt after last couple weeks' performance, they needed to make a change. This was tweeted out by the Misfits official Twitter account, saying that they wanted to add some stability. Jez is as a player, well, he definitely has been known for being this very intelligent coaching kind of presence. He got his training in NA for a little while. He comes back in. He works with Fnatic. He plays their support role in 2017. And then he's been with Misfits ever since the summer split started, so they're very well acquainted with his style.
We are seeing a bit of a gank and bop. I don't think it's going to result in a huge amount. But yeah, to kind of tack on to that, Jez's point, he is someone that the players have often regarded very highly. They think that he's been really valuable in their growth this split, and he's helped them understand a lot more about how to play the game. You talked about him being intelligent. Definitely a big brain player, as many pro players would call him. But over the last few weeks, we have seen Misfits struggle. Largely because when they don't get a lead in the bot lane, the team just doesn't seem to know what to do. When they don't have a lead, Misfits have struggled. And given that over the last few weeks, they haven't been able to fix these issues or kind of develop, they decided to bring in a new face, a new perspective, a new approach to the game that they're hoping might change that. And it could offer many different people like insight into more of the issues, or it could just give people new ways of thinking about the game. Overall, the change is the intent to bring about something different with playoffs on the horizon. And with Misfits already locking in playoffs, I feel like this is the best way to do it. And Misfits have always said, as long as they're in playoffs, they don't really care where they fall, because the finals is all that matters to them.
That's a fair point, and I want to call back to your talking point about the bottom lane needing to get some leads. It's especially been very prevalent in the back half of the split. You've talked about Hans Sama slumping a little bit, and all you really need to do is look at these numbers and realize, yeah, he absolutely hasn't had the same impact in the latter half.
Yes, you can look at his KDA overall has been very low this second half. The damage per minute has dropped dramatically, but also the CS differential at 15, very, very low. Now, we're going to have to cut this short as Alphari is getting dived.
Yes, he is. Let's see. Smittyj going forward and the Gnar into the wall. Alphari eats an orange and it's K, but not really. That's going to be first blood. Nice aggro juggle on the tower.
Love this dive from H2K, playing towards their win conditions. They didn't need to bring the Fizz up because Smittyj had gotten some very nice poke down onto Alphari prior. The Gnar was just about to come up. Everything was beautifully done. H2K find themselves first blood.
Yeah, and it seems like Maxlore a little bit late to that party to try and sniff out the dive. You see him coming there just to try and clear some waves. Let's take a look at our replay in this fight and see that Alphari was just so isolated from the pack.
Yeah, just look at the minimap. Full vision up the river in favor of H2K. Alphari doesn't have the support of his jungler. Level 6 versus no level 6 in favor of Smittyj. And just H2K knew that Alphari didn't have his flash after the prior gank. So they're doing everything that they need to, and they found an early kill. And this is kind of the risk that we talked about for Misfits earlier on. They don't have that many winning lanes. You can see that there's no real CS advantage, really, except for down the bottom lane, of course, where I will give Shulk the benefit of the doubt in this instance. But yeah, so far, H2K doing a great job in the early game.
Very true. And, pointing out that when you have these losing lanes, you do kind of need the jungler to help out a little bit and make things happen early. Well, Maxlore's not only on a champion that can sometimes struggle to do that early, he has also had some similarly struggles in the early stage of the game in the second half of the split. This is another big part of the Misfits dip.
Yeah, you're quite right. And, we highlight these two players because they were such big talking points in the first half of the split. Maxlore was considered MVP for the first half by many analysts and even many pros. And also, Hans Sama was such a big carry. And you can just see the difference. The KDA overall for Maxlore dropping dramatically, but more importantly, the kills and assists at 15. You can see the big difference. 4.1 in the first half, only down to 1.4. Just showing showing how little his impact has been in the second half and how he has struggled to find those early kills, resulting in early leads for Misfits. Yeah. Or a lack of early leads, rather.
Very true. This is going to be trouble if it continues along this way because H2K are already finding these little edges. It's only 1 kill so far. We're still fairly early on in this game, but that's translated, plus the CS difference, to 1,000 gold the lead. And critically, a lot of that's in the CS up top. Look at how much Smittyj is bullying Alphari. And I can't believe I just said that, because way early in the split, you would not have said that phrase.
Nope, but Smittyj is getting the support that he hasn't had all split as well. And it's working out very nicely. Alphari really struggling, just forced to play under his tower. This is what you expect when you are the Gangplank. Not running the stopwatch.
Oh dear.
K-Draw making his way again.
Okay, this time Alphari sniffs it out.
Yeah, he reads the play. He also notices that the Selfie is missing. The Fizz looking for some chump to make himself happy.
And this is going to be a lot of chunk damage onto the tower, but this is another thing that the Gangplank can do. Post level 6, you get the cannon barrage out. That's able to cut the legs off of that push.
Yep.
Still, that's a lot of damage early for H2K, and it helps them to try and push in this early lead.
Ugh, but it's so rough for the Gangplank. Gonna have a quick look at how much gold that he's currently sitting on, because he's not running the Kleptomancy, and he is about 800 gold behind.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you're an unsuccessful pirate. You don't get any gold.
No plunder for me, matey. And for now, he's just his tower slowly gonna be chipped away at a level disadvantage. And on the bright side, though, Hansama doing well in lane. Sencux hasn't died yet against the Fizz. Always a big bonus if you're a Syndra in this matchup. Already rushing the Merc Tread, same for Selfie. So both mid laners showing the respect to the potential burst.
That's a good point. We've been harping on the top lane and how H2K is really getting the damage done there, and Maxlore kind of a little late to the party. But the rest of the lanes are really not doing so bad right now, and that's going to be critical for Misfits. Speaking of critical, Sencux does get the dodge out, and he even scatters the weak onto Selfie, who's a little low on mana. Jez is coming through, sidestepping.
There's the rust showing there for Jez's missing his foot.
He's been coaching for a while. Give him time.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure as the game progresses, he'll brush the rust off, land those skill shots. K-Draw, though, hanging around the top lane once again.
Oh, barrels out. Instantly, Smittyj jumps in. This time, Maxlore is there, and he gets the body slam flash off. That's a lot of damage, but I don't know if Alphari wants to take this fight. I don't know if he can. A little bit of disconnect there. Maxlore goes golden. K-Draw trying to limp away, but Smittyj going 1, 2, not going to go all in.
He gets himself the red buff. Maxlore still has his ulti, but I wonder if he ran out of mana and wasn't able to use it. K-Draw's so low with the ulti combined with the damage from Alphari might have been enough, but in the end, H2K come out ahead on the 2 versus 2. They're going to secure not only a kill, but first tower of the game.
All right, that one's going down. 10 minutes in, 2-0 for H2K, 1 tower up, and that's a 2,000 gold advantage. Now, H2K is certainly looking to try and play spoiler a little bit here. Misfits are going to have to pick up the pace to keep pace.
Things are looking dire in this early game for Misfits right now. Yes, Hansama doing great in lane. Kind of what you'd expect when it is Hansama versus Shook. And on the Kaisa, you definitely have that comeback win condition potential later on into the game. But the fact that Alphari is being put down so much is what's hurting them so much. So we can see Maxlore. I'm convinced he doesn't have enough mana. That's why, the only reason why I could see him not using that ultimate, he just miscalculates how much, because that would have been a kill. Guaranteed at least 1 kill, 1 for 1. Maybe Smittyj can't then turn it around because, then it's a 2 versus 1. They feel more comfortable committing to it, but the fact that he didn't use that ulti means that Smittyj walks away with a red buff, another kill, Black Cleaver completed.
2 flashes on the Misfits side,
yep.
too. I mean, you realize that H2K didn't really invest a whole lot there, and K-Draw kind of limps away with his life, and it's fantastic for H2K at the moment. There's not much else to say.
I agree, Pyra.
I'm glad we are aligned.
Let's see what they do with it, though. TP is still available on Smittyj. Gangplank ultimate is up.
Selfie going in, a little bit of extra damage. Maxlore now bringing up the rear. Playful Trickster.
See, you just can't lock him down, man. In teamfights, he's even more obnoxious, especially because on Fizz, you max E first, and so what will happen is right now the cooldown is at 10 seconds, okay? And once he builds a little bit more cooldown reduction, typically what you'll see is Zhonya's plus Lichbane, and maybe you'll get an extra cooldown reduction item in there as well. Smittyj, could he be in trouble?
Oh, I think he's been in trouble a little bit. Too far forward, and he gets knocked back, not quite into tower range. There's the parley coming out. He throws the barrel, or throws the boulder, I should say. Hansama, though, is hunting around the side, flashing forward, followed by Smittyj, and he's making it a Cathian rain. Hansama coming up with the kill.
So this time Misfits send 3 people up topside, secure that kill onto Smittyj. Yeah, I mean, they really wanted to get that kill, relieve some of the pressure away from Alphari. It did cost a flash on Hansama, and it will give H2K the Drake, and on top of that, a lot of damage down onto this tier 1 in the bot lane. So, like, a lot of commitment being thrown there for Misfits to try and get something back.
Yeah, Misfits really kind of itched to start a fight there, and they do manage to get the kill, but they lose out, as you said, on some tower pressure down bot on a dragon, the Cloud Dragon taken by H2K. It'll make them even more slippery. Now let's take a look at that one more time.
So Maxlore's here, lying in wait. Smittyj, you can't be this far pushed up when you don't have vision or really the pressure to support you. For you guys in solo queue at home, when your top laner does this and he says, oh, why didn't you get anything? Well, it's not really the team's fault when you're the one that far overextended. Now, fortunately, because Misfits sent 5 members top, H2K could trade for something elsewhere on the map, and that was the best case scenario for them. But yeah, Hansama committing his flash as well. Probably a little overkill.
Hey, he got the kill.
In the end, they
got
the kill. Yes, yes, yes.
So Stormrazor on as well for him. We're going to have to keep an eye on the item buys as the game goes on for the Kaisa. Kadril, though, soloing out onto the Rift Herald. This is going to make H2K's push even more potent. And there's really no contest here. No one knows this is happening, and easy Rift Herald take.
Now, we are seeing Hansama rush the Stormrazor. This is something that's been happening quite a lot on Kaisas all around the world. Pretty more actively, you then go Stormrazor into Rageblade. It gives you a little bit stronger of an early item spike, especially with the nerfs to Rageblade. It means that it's much better as like a scaling item rather than necessarily always a first pick item. Also kind of why you see the Blade of the Ruin King rushes from many Varuses as well. Now, the Rift Herald was secured earlier on. It's going up towards top side. H2K continuing to play towards their strong lane. Likely going to be another tower.
Yeah, and this time Smittyj can push up with impunity because he not only has Shelly to back him up, but you can see where Kadril is on the map. H2K pretty much owning this side of the jungle, and that's going to make Misfits actually shoved a little bit further in than they'd be comfortable with at this point in the game. 15 minutes about on the clock, and H2K 2 towers to 0.
Credit to Shook, he's been doing a solid job so far. He is at a bit of a deficit, but he's been staying bot lane, farming away on the rise. Hasn't given up his tower. He's even gotten a little bit of damage down onto that enemy tower too, while the rest of H2K have been finding a lot of success, you know?
Yeah.
Playing much towards the top side. You can see that Fizz, Selfie, no kills yet. Does make me a little sad. He's building hyper defensive. That's a rush on Zhonya's. Now, that's not how I would build Fizz. I would go Lichbane into death.
You also main Nocturne mid.
That's also true. I do like to kill stuff. But most of the mid laners I go up against don't run Exhaust either. And I think that's one of the things that scares him, along with the fact that there is that TP on Hansama as well that he wants to show a little bit more respect towards. But his farm has been good. Looking forward to seeing how he plays these team fights. You can see he does have the mana crystal, so he's going to work towards that Sheen into the Lichbane next. And that's when the cooldown reduction starts to come in. And that's when you got really obnoxious, like 6 seconds on the E, late game fights. Ugh.
Can't lock
so
the guy down.
Annoying. So annoying.
Yeah, I think late game fights is going to be the name of the game, though, as Hansama finds Shook. Careful there. Promisq was there. As the fight over the wards continue. Because I wanted to talk about Hansama and how on this Kaisa he's going to scale a pretty ridiculous amount as well.
Yep.
Syndra's going to have some of those buffs, but yeah, it does seem like Selfie's Fizz should outshine a little bit as long as he doesn't get caught, because he walks right into the belly bop and unleash the power. He's gone golden, but he's not going to last too long. Doesn't matter if you hop, my friend, and one more shot will do it. Alphari gets the parlay.
Ooh, unfortunately for Selfie, he wasn't able to dodge quick enough, and Maxlore gets a good punish. Now Misfits have their eyes set on their first tower of the game, and it will be in the mid. Can Smittyj stop it?
Is the question. Not too much wave clear, but he does have the boomerang and full commit here from Misfits. They rush the tower. Meanwhile, H2K, they should be able to get some pressure down to the bottom. This could be a trade here.
But there's the Gangplank ultimate. This is one of the strengths that it has off in a side lane. Don't know if it'll be enough to stop the tower going down, but it will mean that H2K can't keep pushing down towards the bot side. Misfits can reset. They'll be able to catch some of the wave. Let's see exactly how this happens. So Selfie, he doesn't have vision in the river. He's going to go clear it out, and then he's not expecting Maxlore in the bush. And the chain CC between the Gragas and the Sejuani was just perfect, which means that they had just enough time to kill him before he was able to get away.
Yep. Since Gragas been coming back in the meta just for a little bit now, it's nice to see him doing a little more damage too, because I remember like back when it was all tank all the time, he was always building the Cinder Hulk, and having him have like the AP damage, those belly bops, the barrels, they kind of hurt a lot more. So
he's going AP.
He is AP. I mean, they've got a Braum, they've got one tank.
I mean, I've seen a couple variations. I've definitely seen Cinder Hulks on Gragas. It looks like Maxlore wants a little bit of extra wave clear, bit of extra damage. You know, you just talked about it. Does give a little bit more pack of the punch from your belly.
How does one punch with their belly?
By using E.
Oh, okay.
It's called belly punch.
I don't think that's true.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm going to give this one to you, Vedis, because you predicted the last game
As someone with a belly,
so.
I think I know what I'm talking about, Pyra.
This conversation is getting weird.
So Dragon's going to be spawning in about a minute's time. Infernal is on the cards. Now, often teams do like to play around this Drake. It does offer a lot. And Misfits, though, still at a gold deficit. We haven't really been able to see H2K utilize more of the 1-3-1, but this early on into the game, it can be a little bit challenging. They're still in a comfortable spot, though. Very, very healthy at this point.
Tight spot for just a second, though, and Selfie actually, he is able to get the Zhonya's on, and Promisq Cage will tap their way in. Double teleports popped at Sencux. He's flashed before he gets a bite taken out of him. He will live, and the Shark is going to whiff, but H2K respond quickly and save the life of Selfie. 20 seconds on that Infernal. They might be in position to take it.
Yeah, so a lot was used in that last fight. TP from Smittyj, flash from Cage, no flash from Selfie, ignite as well from Promisq. But Selfie very close to losing his life. There's the advantage of rushing the Zhonyas. I would have died twice now, very quickly, if he had not gone for that early purchase, and it does give H2K priority over mid. Hansama over the wall.
Doesn't want to find it, doesn't want to look for that kill, especially while Smittyj about to pop the Mega Gnar, but this will mean H2K, as they back off tower, immediately turn towards Infernal Drake. Critical pickup here as we get closer and closer to that 20-minute mark in mid-game.
So H2K, you know, funnily enough, one of the potential risks, I say in quotation marks, with this 1-3-1 is, in most 1-3-1 comps, you draft two split pushes, one or two split pushes. And then you have like a defensive mid lane champion that can just sit and wave clear. Something like Ezreal, Jhin, Ashe, all really good examples of that. H2K don't really have that, they have Ryze, and they kind of want him on a side lane because Selfie doesn't have TP, but it's kind of short range. There's a bit of a risk there. But you are right, he's likely going to be the one sitting mid and just wave clearing for the most part. We'll see how H2K actually set up their 1-3-1 once they take this mid tower down, because it will open up the map a lot more. Now they're going to Sencux.
Onto the route, and Sencux! There's the barrel coming out, but looks like Cage was still able to find him. Shook finishes the fight on that one, and the rest of Misfits tagging in way too late. Promisq gets Maxlore. The tower is saved, but Vedius at what cost?
Yeah, 2 quick kills going in favor of H2K. Maxlore does his best to try and keep Sencux alive, but he doesn't respect that there are 5 members of H2K underneath their tower. He ends up going down. Maxlore was quick to follow, and now H2K, they still have a tower set in their eyes.
And I'll be able to grab that one. Number 4 here, doubling the count that Misfits have been able to secure. The same is true of the kill feed there. And we got ourselves 3,000 ahead. H2K in the lead still with this 1-3-1 composition that they've been using to push down the mid.
Gets really difficult for Syndra when she doesn't have flash. Oh, she gets locked behind the pillar. The Ryze route is there as well. All 5 members of H2K, and Maxwell thinks, oh, I've knocked them away, I can come in and heal, but he gets thrown into the wall. The fish is sitting right underneath him, so that ends up taking a chunk out of his health bar. He ends up dropping 2. They lose a tower as well. Misfits, they have been struggling so much in recent weeks. They are now at a 3,000 gold deficit against a team that only last week was yet to win a game. This is, you would never expect this. No one would have called this based on the fact that Misfits were 10-0.
There was a time we were talking about if they could match Fnatic's perfect split from 2015.
Yes.
Like, I'm not trying to say that Misfits have completely fallen off. This team is still strong in a lot of ways, but they've acknowledged that there's been consistency issues.
Yep.
They've needed to make a change. This is why they bring Jezz in and his voice into the game directly over Mikyx, who's more known as his playmaker. But Misfits Gaming, they might be on the road to 4 losses in a row here, Vedius.
Well, the thing is, this is where we get to see the power of Jezz. Good damage.
And the power unleashed onto Shook. Woo, baby, that was close.
Disengage there, uses the Seraph's Embrace shield to keep him alive.
Good thing he stacked his tier early.
Oh no, he's sitting on a ward, does he not? Yeah, okay, good job, Sencux, back away there. But, I had a point. Have I just lost it? Right, yeah, power of Jezz. The thing about Misfits, power of Jezz is Misfits have often struggled in the mid game. So when they're kind of neutral or a little bit behind, the team often doesn't know what to do. They look kind of lost, and by bringing in Jezz, you would hope that with his experience and with kind of the vocal player that he has shown to be, especially when he was playing for Fnatic, that he would offer insight and goals and ways back into the game. after joining the roster. And now that we are approaching that mid-game point, they do still have scaling as an option. We'll see if Misfits are able to be proactive or they just passively lose the game.
Jez is waiting in the wings, trying to get the Winter's Bite off. And yeah, on that point as well, it's not like they just brought him in as a ringer or anything either. Jez has been working with this team the whole split long, so he's very well aware that this is the problem that Misfits suffer from, and he's seen it in the footage time and time again. He's sitting backstage knowing that this is happening week after week, so now he's in the comms with the team. He can be talking them through this situation that's happened so many times for Misfits, and I want to see what it actually leads to here, because at the moment Misfits are getting pushed back by H2K. Cajal wrapping around the side, and Alphari dodging away from the Smittyj ultimate, but I don't know if you can dodge the chomp, my friend. Maxlore Sencux coming through. Cajal now is the one isolated. Promisq thrown down the ward. Smittyj chucks the boulder, and that's going to be it.
Alphari forced to use his flash again. He's been constantly on the back foot this game. We talked about like what options he did have. They decided to put him on a carry. Maxlore tried to play through him a couple times, which is something that we've seen Misfits do a little bit more of in recent weeks, but didn't end up working out. Cajal was ahead on the mark. They won out on a couple of those 2 versus 2s and definitely came out on top. Now, Selfie is the target.
Jez is looking to cut him off, but Selfie is out. Easy peasy.
A single Q took that much damage away from Jez. That's a little scary.
Selfie's, Fizz is kind of big right now.
2 items. The E is at a 7-second cooldown. I know I keep talking about it, but it's like, it's my favorite thing and worst thing about Fizz. And anyone that's played against a lot of Fizz knows how difficult this guy is to catch. So keep your eyes on him if you can in team fights. And just look how slippery he will be.
That's the case. Shook coming in, stealing away the blue buff from the side of Misfits. So a lot of map control here still for H2K. Jungle on both sides being cleared out as both teams are in kind of this early setup where the Baron will eventually become the big target for both of them to take. A lot of pings here for H2K on the Baron, in fact.
So, quick tip for solo queue friends at home. Now,
that is a quick tip right there. Clear that ward away.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
But another
job,
tip.
Selfie. Thank you for showing that. Itemization on Sencux. Very questionable to me, largely because he's going for, early on, it looked like he wanted the early magic penetration from the Morellonomicon. HP, always kind of useful against assassins, but now he's kind of working towards the death cap, so he's kind of in between 2 builds right now, neither of which is ideal. You want to get a Zhonya's as early as possible against Fizz. It might seem counterintuitive, but the hourglass state that you provide against his fish, especially against the amount of CC that they have, extremely valuable. So valuable. And by moving away from it, he's relying very much on his positioning and his ability to just avoid getting hit by that Fizz ultimate. So we'll see if he's able to do that, but it can be very challenging with the amount of mobility that Selfie has, on top of the fact that there's a lot of CC to lock Sencux down.
Yeah, Sencux also, he already earlier broke his stopwatch and actually sold it back, so he's going to have an even slower time getting back up to that Zhonya's as the game goes on. Seems to be a fight around some of these jungle objectives. Vision Wars, of course, on the Baron, but H2K handily winning that for the time being. Goldie's not extending a ton, but look at this. H2K starting off on the Baron.
Has been spotted out with a blue trinket. H2K are actually fine with that because that's a relatively long cooldown, and they can now just look to set up around the Baron once again. Alphari, if they can get a TP out from Alphari, oof, that would be huge for H2K because Smittyj already winning in a side lane has 2 levels up on his counter laner. I say counter laner, on his opposition rather. And just keeping him in a side lane, preventing him from being able to group is just so important for H2K as they continue to play this 1-3-1 style. And, you know, we talked about it as well, Ryze in the mid lane, kind of what we expected from him. He is their kind of wave clear tool, and Fizz sitting up often in the top side of the map, which is where he's heading right now.
Well said. Misfits, though, they're trying to push out and regain some of this jungle that they lost earlier on after the inner tower fell up towards the top. And you can see Selfie and Cajal still sniffing around at the Baron. Maxlore's there. He throws in a cast just to see what's happening. And they have to know this is going on, so immediately peeled off. Void Seeker came through from Hansama, doesn't find anything. But all the same, Smittyj is getting free tower shots, and he takes the inner down.
Yeah.
Down bot.
Alphari started walking towards the Baron, ends up losing the tower. H2K playing this very patient, very clean. Yet to see any kind of moves made from Misfits. Let's think about when they can actually start to fight. Hansama working towards his 3rd item. Kaisa level 16 is kind of really where she's very scary, but she's still pretty strong at this point in the game. Alphari, it looks like that he is working towards I would expect to be an Infinity Edge based on the fact that he does have that BF sword. He may go for an Essence Reaver, would be a little bit surprising, as we haven't seen him in a while. But even once he completes that Infinity Edge, I don't know if it's suddenly going to make Misfits strong enough to find these fights. Now, the fact that they have 2 TPs means that they can look to make this play.
Yeah. Smittyj might not know what's coming for him here. Alphari gets the barrel pop out. There's Hansama, and it's going to be the slowdown. Smittyj trying to get back to the safety of his tower. Voice Seeker dodged away. Smittyj saving his own bacon.
Yeah, but they can get a tower for free. They could even get themselves a Drake. And again, it's because they have the double teleport available to them that gives Misfits a little bit more gold back on the map. They need someone to go and answer the top lane wave, and that's why Alphari is going back to base. But it's going to get to a point soon where Selfie can pretty much 1v1 everyone. We need to see a little bit of magic resist coming out from Alphari, otherwise he really will struggle against the Fizz.
Yeah, Fizz can be a very terrifying champion, even if you don't have any kills on him. Certainly working his way up towards that third item. Of course, the Lich Bane, pretty big power spike here. Now, Hansama will find an unattended Ocean Dragon. It's going to be a little bit of help, but not if the Baron is started. Promisq already waiting in the wings. H2K seem not fully committed to committing to it, so it does mean that Hansama can pick up that dragon, but he might need to hightail it to the team. Never mind, H2K peel off.
Yeah, H2K are really scared right now of forcing it, which surprises me because Alphari's already used his ulti, and this would arguably be the best time to do it. Just commit. Force the enemy team to burn a couple of teleports. It makes playing a 1-through-1 that much easier, but at the same time, like, the thing is, Baron isn't the way in which H2K win, but in order to split push successfully, they kind of need it. So it would be better for them if Misfits could start it, and then they could look for a pick or something like that. But Misfits are doing a pretty good job of setting up defensive vision, which means that they're allowed to scale, and that's kind of what they're relying on right now, the late game, where Hansama can be on this Kaisa, wait till the late game to make those great outplays that we know he can make, and be the big carry for his team that they very much need.
So for H2K, it does seem like
Stormrazers,
stop being
of course.
afraid of this. And
how foolish of me.
There you go.
Stormrazers is excellent on Gangplank because it gives you that guaranteed crit. Yeah. That was definitely a big mistake for me, but it's a big pickup.
It's still a sword. It just has less edges.
Yes. Very, very
In fact, it has infinity -1 edges less.
But this is a big pickup for Alphari. I definitely think that it'll offer a lot of value in fights. The question is, when will Misfits look to fight, if at all? They do have a decent team fighting, but like it's hard because there's no innate engage. You're very much relying on Maxlore, who, to be honest, is kind of squishy at this point.
About to say it might get squished. Cajal wanted to step forward, puts down the frozen domain. Misfits are pretty much living in like just half of this top jungle, and not really allowing H2K to push too far in any further. So the game state has kind of slowed quite a bit, while H2K have been unwilling to commit to Baron Nashor. Instead, they might look to try and force down mid. Selfie has rejoined the team.
It's really risky against the Syndra, though, because the amount of pick potential she has with her QE combo can be really devastating. And if you get locked up by that, she's gone for Death Cap, which means she's going for the all-in one-shot. And while it is definitely riskier, you're looking to kind of trade your life for someone else. Well, ideally, you don't want to lose your life, but you want to just throw everything out at a single target and either chunk them out extremely low so that they can't impact the fight anyway, or they die. And it's like a high-risk, high-reward build that can definitely pay off, especially when you look at the limited magic resistance out there. But it's going to be hard to kill the Fizz, especially...
Look at all those blue trinkets.
They're all denied right now.
They are all denied.
Ward.
Yeah, it's like when you have your friend over and they just leave a bunch of stuff every single time.
Yep.
But it's not really going to matter. They don't need to clean house because in the pit, the Baron is already down to half health. This will force the reaction out of Misfits. Maxlore could try to go for the hero smite here. He's unguarded around the side of the pit. Hansama looking to come on in. There's the barrel pop. Maxlore will have a chance to come over the wall, try to get the steal off. It's gonna go! He smited early, but he got it anyways. And now let's see if Misfits can take this fight. Looking for Promisq flashing away and Alphari cleaning up Shuck. And that was just chaotic.
That was the worst case scenario for H2K. They get impatient, they go for the gamble, and Maxlore ends up winning out. Big steal from the Misfits jungler, and now it's Misfits that have turned the pressure around.
All of a sudden, the pace drastically changes. So now it is Misfits that are looking to charge into the H2K base here. And this has to be one of the most relieving feelings for a team that was losing against the team in last place of the league. You are already locked into playoffs, but you need to get those wins to put yourself ahead in the battle for seeding.
Ooh. Misfits. They definitely got lucky there. I mean, it was a great steal from Maxlore.
That's what you type in all chat.
H2K, I feel like they didn't need to go for that gamble. Like, they were winning the side lanes extremely hard. They were doing a good job of dividing Misfits up, but let's see how this all plays out. For a start, you can see that engage happens onto Selfie. He's kind of forced out of the fight from the get-go, and then Maxlore goes in by himself. Even though he's stunned against the wall, he steals it, and the smite doesn't even come down from Kadril, which means that at 93 HP, when there were many opportunities to secure it, he tries to use his Q to get the last hit, and Max was just like, yeah, well, I'm just going to take this and walk away.
I actually misread that. I thought Maxlore smited earlier on in the fight and then just autoed it, but I was very wrong.
Yep.
So, nice smite timing, Maxlore.
Good job there, Maxlore. 0-3-3 hasn't had the most impact in this game, but the one single play that he made could have had the most impact in securing a potential win for Misfits. Still a gold deficit, but now they're just grouping up, and they have the Ryze set on securing another inhibitor.
He's got a lot more tanky, too, ever since the early play.
That's true.
So it looks like, meanwhile, there will be a trade up towards the top. You see Kadril double timing with Selfie to try and break open an inhibitor. So while Misfits have the Baron, they're getting the push on bottom. They might be the ones losing out in the pressure game. Nib Tower's going to fall, and H2K looking for more, forcing Sencux to flash away. Power's going to be unleashed. A double teleport coming through, and this is going to be the chance for Misfits to try and win this fight with that Baron buff on. They get the stun. They get shook. Alphari leading the charge down through the broken tower, looking for Smittyj, but he walks away, or can he? Hansama flashing forward, double kill, clean in house.
And Misfits finding another huge team fight win. They have 5 members alive. Here comes Selfie.
Let's see if he can get nearly enough damage. I don't know about that one. He goes gold, but no execution just yet. Jesus is staying alive, baby. That's the ace, and Misfits in the base.
Misfits, after a very difficult early game, are able to turn it around and will shut down H2K.
Misfits, that is how you turn it around. This team sits in first place in the EU LCS.
Oh, that looked so good for H2K for so long. The way they played around top side of the map, Shook was holding his own. Yeah, he fell behind a little bit, but he was doing his job. Selfie playing pretty well on the Fizz, but then they saw the Baron and they were like, this is the only way we're going to be able to end this game. We need to secure this.
You get a little impatient, and sometimes that's the only difference maker. And when it counted, Maxlore was the one who hit the smite at the right time.
Yes.
Turn things in favor of Misfits. Now they hold sole possession of first place until Fnatic play later today.
Until Fnatic play later today. That's definitely true. This game will not impact the standings or seedings in any significant way for the time being. Many more games left to go to help determine a little bit more of how the seedings play out. As a reminder, Misfits, after the win from Splice earlier in the day, have already locked in that playoff spot, and this will just help them in terms of the seeding race that will be happening over the next 2 weeks. But it was a very, very concerning win, that's for sure. You kind of look at how they played. They drafted a lot of losing lanes. Alphari got shut down very hard in the laning phase, and things were looking dire. You know, you just look at the gold deficit
until the very end. I mean, this is the thing I want to point out, is that you're absolutely right. There's a lot to be concerned for Misfits here, but I want to give them credit for realizing they needed to make a change while they're still in a prime playoff position before it starts to get bad. They bring in Jez's. Yes, they have a rough time against H2K, but they critically pull the win. They snap their losing streak, and that's momentum to build off of.
But I feel like when you win a game off of stealing a Baron, that's not the way in which you want to come back, right? Like, because that to me was more on a not the greatest decision from H2K, rather than Misfits being able to turn a game back in their favor through proactive playmaking. And
sure.
Yes, it was good in how they used the Baron. They were smart in how they ended up ending the game. And once they got it, they were quick to close things out. And that is good to see from Misfits. But this kind of early game deficit is not the situation that you want to be in. And all I can say is mad props to H2K. It is a difficult situation that they've been in over the last few weeks, but the early pressure that they had over Misfits was monumental.
It certainly was, and here was that big highlight play, the big difference maker.
Yep.
And it was a comeback. They did have to make the comeback.
Of
You're
course,
right, it's
of
concerning.
Course.
But they pulled it off.
It was the way in which they did it, right? Which is always going to concern a couple of Misfits fans, but they were able to do it in this final fight. Like, the big mistake was from Smittyj here. He flashed in to try and lock down Sencux, and he gets a very good flash out of that situation, which means that they can then turn this fight around. The double teleport's available for Misfits, and you can see the other two members that don't have TPs cannot help the other H2K members out. And when it's 5 versus 2, there's very little that can be done.
I want a little thought experiment for just a second. If Selfie and Kadrill hadn't backed, do you think they could have won a base race?
No. Almost certainly not. You're going to lose against the Baron.
Superior analyst right there, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so now we'd like to get some insight from our viewers in the Player of the Game vote at LLeSports on Twitter. We've narrowed your choices down to Maxlore, Hansama, and Alphari. And
if you guys vote for Hansama in this game, shame on you. It was Maxlore.
You're calling out the fans,
literally won this game alone. Maxlore, if he did not steal that Baron, like, this game could have gone so differently.
It's what allowed them to do it, to be fair. I'll give you that one. Now, after the break, we're going to hear from Perks before he and G2 Esports continue their hunt for the title against Unicorn's Love. But first, let's hear from Laura with Misfits top laner.
Thank you very much, Pyra. I guess doubled congratulations are in order here, because with Splice winning earlier, you guys are now locked for playoffs. So what was your reaction to this?
Honestly, I didn't care so much when I found out we were locked for playoffs. We had a really good start to the split, going 9-0, so it's kind of expected in a way that we should be in playoffs. So yeah, not really fussed. Okay,
well, even though congratulations may be in order here, you will have some time to celebrate later, but you had a bit of a slump lately, let's say. So what happened here?
So at the start of the split, we were just winning games through like the same style of snowballing through bot lane, and every bot lane was just being really boosted, so we'll get a lead every game. But now, bot lanes are actually, able to match up, so we can't just rely on the same strategy to win us games, and that's kind of exposed the weakness we have, which is mid-late game, we kind of struggle if we're even or behind. So we kind of had to think about the game more of a macro sense rather than just relying on our early game, which we're still trying to fix, and also just rely on other lanes more to also be the carry.
How do you feel about your team right now? Do you think that you have what it takes to get back on top?
Yeah, I do. I think we have a lot to improve on compared to Fnatic. I think they're extremely good, like the best team in Europe. Mm-hmm. But I think we have enough time for playoffs, and we have we know the issues we have. So it's just whether we can fix them in time, which I believe we can. And
you brought new additions to the table today with Jesse's playing now. We know he's been helping you guys for a while, but what's the difference in game?
So some games, late game, we would be lacking kind of leadership from our foreman. And it just so happens that Jesse is really good at communicating. Not that Mikyx isn't, it's just that they bring different things. Like Mikyx's insanely good mechanically, whereas Jesse might be slightly better in terms of communication. So we're just kind of testing it out to see if it can be an improvement, considering how badly the past few weeks have gone for us.
Well, it's worked well today. I hope it will go well for you guys tomorrow. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'll be catching up with Perks ahead of